Hello, everyone. I'm Megan Raymond. Tonight, I'm guest hosting the Made from Scratch broadcast for 𝗍𝗶𝘁𝗀. I'm the host and creator of 𝗍𝗏𝗍 Brainstorm in Progress. It's my 15-minute creative brainstorming show where I clear creative blocks and challenges for my on-air guests. But tonight, on Made from Scratch, my guest is Loren Greiff. Say hello, Loren.
Hi, Megan. How are you? Hi. Hello, Megan.
And I pronounced your last name correctly?
You did a great job. Thank you.
Yay! Loren is the president and founder of Portfolio Rocket, where she helps designers and marketers access the hidden job market, where 80 to 85% of the jobs are, but are not posted. So we're going to get into that in a second. But first, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone for joining us tonight on the Made from Scratch broadcast on LinkedIn Live. If you don't know already, you can catch the show here and on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Central, for compelling interviews with people who are creating great stories with their lives, and we share those stories right here. All right, Loren, before we jump into your work, let's get to know you a little bit better. Do you have a favorite mantra or saying or life saying that you think explains how you see the world?
You know what? I actually have many mantras, and I seem to rotate them on the regular. So for tonight's mantra, I think I'm going to go with a favorite of mine, which is "Man plans, God decides," which isn't a religious thing at all. It just means that, things happen and we mortals have our own way of predicting what's going to happen. And of course, that always isn't the most reliable way of approaching your life. So you always need to be prepared, and you always need to have plan B, C, D, or E, because you never know when you're going to need to pull it out.
So you're not into that saying there's no plan B, and you probably believe in there are no little plans.
There are no little plans, there are no accidents, and also nothing gets wasted.
True that, especially in nature. Okay, so I kind of gave a brief description of what you do, but now I want you to take over and let everyone know, how do you describe what you do for a living? Because you are not the stereotypical person that helps people find work.
No, I'm a big fan of the zag. If everyone's zigging, I'm definitely not going that direction. So I'm going to be zagging over here. And so what I do for a living is I help designers, creatives, and marketers find jobs in the hidden job market, which, just so you know, it's not like a big secret. The hidden job market, to give you the short answer, is jobs that are unadvertised. So the jobs that are not visible on the surface, you're not going to find them on job boards. You're not going to see them, posted all over the place. And they're not going to be on Indeed or anything like that. So these are jobs that actually equate to the majority of the opportunities that are out there, and there's lots of reasons why. It equates to about 80 to 85% of the jobs that are actually available but unseen to most people.
So what's an example of how that would work? What would be a hidden job?
Great question. So let's just pretend, there's a company who has somebody who just resigned today.
Got it.
And they haven't necessarily posted the job. They don't even know if they're going to post the job. So you may be at the right time at the right place and already have developed a relationship, ideally, with somebody who is a decision maker and knows, because of your rapport and because of what you do, because of the problems that you solve, you'd be a great fit for this.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens regularly. And of course, that is a little bit of a precursor to building referrals.
Mm-hmm.
So you will have a 15 times greater opportunity of landing the job with a referral than the 1 in 500 chance that you would have in just moving to the next step should you decide to go through the quote unquote more traditional channels.
Wow, that's huge. How did you get into this line of work? And what problem are you solving? Clearly you're helping to solve a big problem.
So I got into this line of work because I had lived in the creative world for over 30 years. I know that's crazy, but it has been my life, and it's been my work, and it's been my absolute labor of love on every level. But for the past 10 years prior to starting my business last March, I had been on the recruiting side. I've seen what happens on the back end, whether it's with hiring managers and decision makers, whether it's on the ATS, which is the applicant tracking system, the influx of candidates that would flood in through the corporate postings of those sites. Mm-hmm. So I can tell you very confidently that if somebody were to come to my office showing me a resume and saying, this is my cousin's brother's mother's sister, you know, I think she'd be amazing at this role. Yeah, it's going to not only get my attention, it's going to save me time, and it's also going to really cut my workload. Mm-hmm. Because now I already have a personal referral, somebody who has recommended this person, and it saves me hours and hours of work. So I knew that there was this secret hidden job market, and I essentially started studying it, and I started understanding not only the power of networking, which I'd like to replace that word with personal capital, right? Because as you are building your network, it's not like a one and done thing the way that, you know, it would be if you just shot out an application online, which essentially you get nothing back from. You will always be building that equity and that capital if you are building your network and your referrals.
Okay, so it's really about the strength of the network and re-looking at what that network means and how you maintain it, how your actual network is, and things like that.
Totally. I mean, you know, it's been said before, so don't think that I made this up. You know, your network is your net worth. And it's a fascinating statistic. There's a statistic by this gentleman. His name is Mark Gansvader. He is a Stanford professor, and it's actually less of a statistic. Let me rephrase that. It's more of a finding. He's a Stanford professor and really identified the power of what he calls the strength of weak ties. And so what that means, for anybody who is Googling Mark at this point, or Googling the strength of weak ties, it identifies that it's not the people that you already know, because those people know you, and you're retreading that same ground over and over again. So the weaker ties, maybe your 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th connections, or the people you have yet to meet, turn around and essentially become way more powerful, because it's not like drinking dirty bathwater. Mm-hmm. I know that's a really disgusting image, but it works. So right. You want to be, you know, bringing in fresh, clean water, people who are newer to your network. And of course, it's not necessarily easy to build rapport with strangers, right? Mm-hmm. So there are definitely powerful ways to crack into that.
So this is talking about building your personal capital in terms of building this kind of network that isn't just the people that you already know, because they already know you and they probably identify you in a certain way. This is about building it out even further to acquaintances of acquaintances, and maybe you start figuring out this common ground of like, oh, we both have this kind of interest, or we're both in this kind of field, or whatever.
Yes, so there are so many strategies to this, and so many that a teacher of mine calls hiding in plain sight. So they are actually a lot more visible than they are. It's just that they're not necessarily ways that any of us have been taught to look for opportunities.
You bring up a very good point, that it's about learning how to do this, because a lot of us aren't really taught or groomed in how to think about our workplace environment or our career, and in terms of who are all those stakeholders who are a part of that and how to develop that. Because I think a lot of people start feeling uneasy. They feel like, oh, I'm asking for a favor, instead of understanding that maybe there's this mutual beneficial relationship that's part of it. It was interesting. Somebody online, somebody in the questions was asking, do you only work with people in the United States, or do you work with people internationally?
Internationally, I've had people in my program from Latvia, from Italy, and all over the world. So, definitely, if I can't adjust the times of when the services are available, but if you're in, I'm in.
Right. So, and that's the other thing I just wanted to clarify too. You're not specifically like a job recruiter in terms of, you don't have a series of jobs that you're looking to fill with candidates. You are trying to teach a methodology to people who are maybe either new to having to look for work again for the first time in a long time, or getting ready to transition, or maybe even transition fields or careers and stuff. Is that right?
You nailed it. You
Okay.
Totally stuck that landing, for sure, because I do not have a job to sell you. I'm not being paid by a company to promote XYZ. And part of accessing the hidden job market is navigating to what it is that is your ideal job. This isn't about cookie cutter. Let me contort myself into this, a specific role. This is designing it for yourself. And it's been ginormously effective, not only with my clients, but just as I give away free tips all the time, especially on LinkedIn. I'm hearing people more and more come back, and they're like, oh my God, Google just found me, and Amazon, or this person and that person, and I never expected that it was going to go in this direction. So it's very exciting.
So would it be fair to say you're more of a networking coach than a career coach or a job coach? Or I know that you don't really have.
I really don't consider myself a networking coach, because honestly, there are so many other components about it. There is salary negotiations. There are things with respect to interviewing. So it's, accessing the hidden job market is the way that you're going to get in. Mm-hmm. And of course, you never want to take your foot off the gas there until something is solidified.
Got it. So you really help them from beginning to end, but you're coaching them. You're not hooking them up with potential jobs.
Exactly. Thank you for that distinction. Yes. Because I still get people like saying, oh my God, here's my resume. Here's my portfolio. Where can you place me? And I go back and correct them.
I can't. That's not what I do. I don't have any of that. So I think we kind of got into this. Is there any other way that we need to make sure that people are understanding understanding that what you're bringing to the table that's different than what?
Sure. So it's vital. It is so vital that you are not only accessing the hidden job market, whether it be through referrals or not, but really, a tip that I can share with you that is so powerful is to get involved in conversations throughout social media. So if you are somebody who is on LinkedIn, and since there's only 675 million people on LinkedIn, it'd probably be a good place to join. Mm-hmm. That being said, roughly 1% or thereabouts are active content writers, people who are developing and delivering value-added content day in and day out. So, it is a commitment. There's no question about it. And it's not an easy fix. But by participating in that conversation, especially among the thought leaders that you want to find mm-hmm. you get to jump the line. Mm-hmm. Now, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify, because you're also saying, bringing value-added content. What would be your idea would be value-added content in a forum like?
Here's what value content is not, all right? It's like a little bit of a, hey, great post, or some throwaway item, or like, a like, okay, like that's really pretty low level. There's not that much value that's coming from it. However, on the opposite end of that, value-added comments or content or, commenting would really be if you are sharing either another tip that is piggybacking on top of somebody else's, a different perspective. And please just know this right off the bat, healthy debate is welcomed. Don't feel like you need to be a yes person and agree with that. I actually like to not stir it up to be causing trouble, but to really invite that kind of contradictory point of view so that it's not just the same, a bunch of people agree. So come there prepared to add something to the conversation, your specific and unique point of view. That's value added.
That's really good to know, because I'm sure a lot of people would wonder about, like, well, how am I bringing content? How am I saying something that could actually make a difference? And do people really take note? Does it really make a difference? Do people respond? Do they make new connections that way? Do they really think like, oh, this person was interesting with what they had to say, let me check out their profile and connect with them, or see?
Yeah, and clearly, if you are participating in those conversations regularly, your name is top of mind, right? If they start seeing you on the regular and they know that you're coming with lots of good chocolate cake, I can tell you that they're not going to be turning it down.
Right. It's chocolate cake. I love that. So I also thought that it was really interesting because you had mentioned, you and I talked before the show, and you mentioned that you really want to transform the job search. Is there anything else that you want to say to that? Because you had also mentioned that, as we're also witnessing with a lot of other systems, that there seems to be certain breakdowns, or systems used to work a certain way that maybe don't work as well as they used to, or maybe times have changed, but systems have not to reflect those new changes. And I didn't know if there was anything that you wanted to speak to that.
I will quote the Rolling Stones right here. Time waits for no one. And what I mean by that is the market is always moving. And I find this to be a particularly just truism that here we are, dealing with people who describe themselves as innovators. In the design world, we are required to constantly be speaking about older things or traditional things in a new way. And so I find it interesting that so many of those folks are still married to, the job boards, which are as old as dirt. So the question is, transforming the job market or transforming somebody's career, you cannot use the old methodologies if you want something new and different. And part of that is not only having a structure and a system, which I am a huge advocate for. Like, I'm a big jokester, but I'm very serious about this, because it's your life and it's your career and it's your work and it's your salary and it's your fulfillment and so many other layers on top of that. But the truth is, it doesn't have to be a drag. Meeting new people, developing your voice and content is a self-exploration, and what you get out of it is in a perfect mirror to what you put into it. So it is a perfect match.
You bring up a really good point, because I think a lot of people dread the job search, and it's all about vulnerability. It's all about, people deal with imposter syndrome. People feel like deflated because the job search always seems to take longer than you think it would, or there's always the stress of the financial strain or whatever else. Do you have any advice or anything about that, about what that's like? Because I really love how you said, like, it doesn't have to be a drag. It just doesn't have to be this.
Yeah, I want to emphasize two messages, right? It's not a day at the beach, okay? Like, I understand that you're probably not like doing a backflip going, yay, now I have to look for another job. So I want to acknowledge it's stressful, it's hard, it's a discipline. It is something that you really need to address on a regular basis and treat it like a job if you want what you want. So, you know, it does not have to be a drag insofar as there are ways to make it, to not be spending that time foolishly, right? That only breeds more rejection. There's a big difference between, you know, being busy and being productive. And I'm a huge fan in making sure that people are not busy. Busy is I sent out 200 resumes today and, you know, hit all this and you get very low return. That is not a good time. You know, seeing the excitement on people's faces when they are being productive and I made this connection and this led to this and this led to this, that makes it fun because you're getting gratification, satisfaction. You can see that your efforts are well worth what it is that you're, and the like I said, the ROI that comes back out.
Right. Now, and you specifically focus on working with senior creatives and marketers, but your methodology could be applied to lots of other people, right? It's just that's what you focus on just because that's been most of your experience and your background. So you would more naturally resonate with that type of audience and those kinds of career people who are, because you're so familiar with that environment, right?
Yeah, I don't speak accounting. I don't speak lawyer. I speak design. I speak marketing. I understand not just the language of the design from the candidate standpoint. I can very quickly assess what that hiring manager and decode a job description if you have one, or even be able to understand the profile insofar as something like, well, you know, this is a startup, which means that, you know, you need to know that your job description or your specific role is going to have a lot of job creep. Because when you work in a startup, you have to be good with ambiguity and you have to be able to straddle multiple disciplines. So if you're somebody who is married or dedicated to a lot of systems and processes, that's probably not the case for you. That's probably not going to be your best fit.
Okay, so you're willing to have a lot of, let's be realistic about who you are as a person, where you would really find a fit for yourself, how you could make a change or a transition, what could be a good job for you.
Completely. Yes.
Very therapeutic. And it helps people stay on mark because a lot of times I think people start feeling like I got to fit myself. I'm this round peg and I got to fit myself in the square hole because I need a job. I don't have any options. I must do this thing because this is just what you have to do to
right.
And your philosophy is completely different. It's like, no, it's got to be what works for you because you've got to create longevity.
And also, I find that sometimes, you know, people, especially if they've been disillusioned with one, you know, area, let's just call it like corporate world, and then they're like, you know, I want to go to a startup, and it sounds really sexy. Or it's like the, you know, the fashion of the year. They think, oh, well, I'm going to go try that because that sounds like a fun place without necessarily understanding what's involved with being there. So again, you know, it's really important that you don't just fly over to that nest thinking that it's amazing and you're the right fit. It really has to be in alignment with your vision.
Mm-hmm. So do you have any examples of stories that you can share with us that kind of show us your work in action?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to share this one story because it really is an incredible example of someone who I think is a real hero who has also been a past client of mine. And I bring this up because a term that I've used many times in talking to candidates, especially when they're coming into the program, is they feel like the cards are stacked against them. You know, for whatever reason, you know, whether it's the competition, whether it's this, whether it's that, I don't have enough experience in this area. And I had been speaking on behalf of a university here in Chicago, and there was a woman that was in the audience, and we connected. And she said to me, listen, you know, I think I want to be a UX designer, but I have no experience in this area, and I'm getting my advanced degree. I'm getting my HCI degree at DePaul, but I have no work experience. So she was on the content side, and the content side in her case was nothing to do with writing. It was really about content in the form of images. She worked in an image bank. And what ended up happening is we were able to repurpose a lot of her great schoolwork, but more importantly, she had incredible management skills, and she'd been leading a team on the content side. While this was happening and while we were starting in the very early stages, I encouraged her to get involved with not only LinkedIn and writing content, but it turns out that she was homeschooling one of her 6 kids. So not only is she getting her graduate degree, she's a single mother of 6 kids, working full time, and embarking on a pivot. And I'm like, girl, you got it going on. Like, yes, my hat goes off to you. So she was homeschooling one of her kids, and she was frustrated, super frustrated with how his learning modules were going. And it sparked something in a conversation. And I said, this would be incredible because ed technology is a place where it is just exploding. And user experience, while it's very relevant, is also breaking out into lots and lots of other streams of user-centered design. P.S., I'll cut the story a little short. She is now a hiring manager for an ed tech startup. And this happened not only very quickly, but it happened because of her involvement, her willingness to explore. She got involved with the Slack channel, and she went to other lectures, and she started understanding and meeting people, and they saw her value. She had to put it out there and define it and have a really succinct way of sharing it. But that is what she's doing now. And she's not only earning a lot more money, she is really well on her way to becoming a thought leader within the ed tech community. And I mean, like that just like, I just got the goosepimples, that really like is like a wonderful example of somebody who, didn't necessarily know where she wanted to end. She thought it was going to be this, but it turned into that, and that ended up to be so much better.
Right. It was still in alignment with her dream. It just came out in a different form than she previously thought.
Right. She didn't know even what ed tech was.
That's fascinating. Yeah. And you bring up a really good point. It's interesting because it was like, here was something that she was already exploring, found curiosity around it, had relatable skills, and then was able to start sharing it. So really, in a lot of ways, it's really like the art of sharing and creating these mutually beneficial relationships and stuff. And then people can see your value and your worth and start, helping to connect some of these dots of like, oh, this person would be great for blank.
And I will say, she's in her mid-50s, and she is not somebody who is your quote unquote typical UXer, right? By definition, she is not somebody who, and she was worried, how am I going to compete against all these people that are just coming out of school and, have a lower salary and all of that. And I'm not saying that we marginalized it, but we really didn't focus on that. We focused on what she was able to bring, and it worked.
Keeping her relevant. They were relevancy. Yeah, because I also know, here's a moment of bragging, that you were just featured in Forbes recently about an article about ageism.
Yes.
I thought you said some pretty astute things about, and it's really kind of like what we just talked about, the idea of keeping yourself relevant and staying focused on that rather than the other bits and pieces. I don't know if there was anything else that you wanted to expound upon.
It's interesting because, ageism, like no joke, right? It's real, it's relevant. And of course, we all are not, cheerleading for it. And of course, we want it to be different. We want companies to, not use that as a bias or areas of discrimination. So that is all true, and we cannot change that tonight. And so I put the responsibility back on the candidate and say, if you know that you have a gap in your skills, please do not stick your head in the sand and pretend it's not gonna show up, because you either pay now or pay later, and it will catch up with you. And whether it's technology, communication, a huge one, If you feel like you're somebody who suffers from a lack of empathy, that is for real, like something that shows up in the corporate world, because that is a way for people to determine whether you're going to be a good leader,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're a good listener, whether you care about your team.
Mm-hmm. That is fascinating. Have you learned any life lessons from doing this work or from your career in general that you want to share?
Oh my God. Yeah. You know, I'm a corporate rebel. I tried it on for a very, very long time. And the lesson that I've learned is that I had to take the risk. I was terrified to start this, really, really, really scared. And at the same time, I was like, screw that, I'm just going to do it. So, you know.
What were you scared of? What were the fears that you were?
Oh my God, great question. Afraid of failure. I mean, of course, you know, am I crazy to have this idea? Is anybody going to think it's legit? You know, how am I going to pay my bills? You know, what am I going to do? And most importantly, the overriding thing is, how do I package this value? How do I make this so that, how do I create this so that it isn't something that is, of course, that it needs to be effective. And I'm fortunate because at this point, over 68% of my clients over the last 60 days have landed their ideal job. So I have the ability to go back on that now. But of course, when you're starting, you're like, I don't have anything to necessarily benchmark this against. Mm-hmm. So what I had to do is I had to really trust that not only did I have a unique place in the market, but that I could build a program that was going to be meaningful and effective for my audience, because it's really not about me at all, because I really don't care about me. I care about making sure that my clients are getting what it is that not only do they sign up for, but what it is that they deserve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you bring up a very good point. It's the idea of how to package your value. I think that's a really succinct way of relooking at all these concepts of, like, what is a resume? What is networking? What is outreach? What is, you know, what are your references? What is, you know, the understanding of your experiences or anything like that? I think that really is a cohesive way of bringing that all together. And I also think it's very interesting because you yourself created this life change and this career change for yourself. There's no way that you wouldn't be able to relate to all your clients. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure what kind of empathy you have to be like, yes, I feel it. I understand it. I've been there. I know what it's like. This is scary. This is blah, da, da, da. And that one step at a time of being able to, you know, reshift a mindset as to how to create a career that you really love and enjoy and that you feel is fulfilling and also works with your skill set.
Totally. I will also just throw in there for anybody who is interested in starting something on their own, don't base it off of your opinion. I spent about 6-7 weeks in proof of concept. So I went back to all the hiring managers that I previously had worked with over my career. And I said, what's the biggest problem that you're looking to see solved?
Wow.
And so I wanted to uncover the pressing issues that they were experiencing. It wasn't about me. And then from the candidate's end, listening to them talk about how they felt when they worked with recruiters. Mm-hmm. Most of them told me that they felt like human clickbait. And that is not my terminology. And I needed those verbatims because I am not going to be able to, in my own little world, have that kind of imagery. You know, right. I felt like human clickbait in my job searches, but I don't want to make any assumptions about what it's like for them. And so taking that information really helped paint that picture for me and understand what the demand was in the market.
That's fantastic. I also just wanted to make sure I have to check my notes because I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. This is okay. Oh, and then I had some mentorship questions for you. So now Oh, okay. Well, then I was going to ask you, like, if you had a career story, but you already told us about you launching your own business and what you did with that. So I think we covered that well. So now I have another question. Like, do you have any additional advice? Did we cover enough when it comes to, you know, when people are feeling blocked with they need to do something like get a new job or create change in their lives, but they have the word no, or there's the fear stuck in their head or whatever, like how you dealt with your own fear of.
So this is kind of a big takeaway that I want people to kind of start thinking about as a reframe. And I hear this all the time. I just need a job. I just need a job. And so what I usually say to that is, I understand McDonald's is hiring. And so if you approach it as this is a job, then that's probably what you will get. And what I want the reframe to be is my career needs me.
Ooh, I love that.
So you have an obligation. If you are somebody that works and doesn't want just a job, actually wants to have, you know, you can't have all these wonderful things and just expect that they're going to reveal themselves. You have to make an investment. You have to make an investment in yourself. And that includes learning and taking risks. And if you need to, hire a coach. If you don't want to hire me, no worries. Find somebody that works for you, that speaks your language and is going to drive you to where you want to go. Don't think that you need to like figure this out yourself, because that's kind of crazy. Your goal and what it is that you want should hopefully be so pressing that you are like a bloodhound, not in a vicious way, in the fact that there's a scent and now you're going to follow it and follow it and follow it and follow it until you get to your final destination.
Keeping yourself open up to discovery and learning. And it's like, I'm so fearful of finding the job that maybe you just, it's like, maybe I myself up asking questions or something like that. I'm
so fearful. I get this all the time. You know, like I go through these discovery calls and people are like, I want this and I want that and I want this, but you know, in the next 6 weeks and blah, 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 blah. And then they come back and they're like, well, I don't have any money to pay for that. And I think to myself, you know, I'm not shaming or blaming or anything. I'm saying, well, how much is it worth to you? How much is it worth to you to have all that? And so you know, there's some kind of disconnect between all these wonderful things that you want and then the investment that you're going to make in yourself. And so that's really important. And just as a side note, I do want to make sure that people know, like, I have a responsibility in my business to invest in my own learning. So it's not like I'm not eating my own dog food. I just want to make that clear. And I've literally spent thousands and thousands of dollars to learn things that are going to be helpful so that I can then pass it on. So I'm not, again, recycling just like what I think I know.
You're practicing what you're preaching.
Hopefully, yes. I find that integrity is really a core tenet of mine. So for sure.
Right. All right. This is a favorite question that I love to ask. If you were leaving the planet to move to another galaxy, never to return, what's one piece of advice you'd leave for everyone else on Earth?
My highest value is relationships. That's what I invest in the most. Family, friends, colleagues. I believe that our human connection, there is nothing more powerful than that. I had a friend who actually had a great loss a couple weeks ago, and she called me and asked me for something that was probably very difficult for her because she has a lot of food requirements. Long story short, I made her some vegan soups and was able to drop it off to her. And, you know, that is actually way more meaningful to me than a lot of other stuff that happens, whether it be on social media. And I felt very privileged that she made that request. So my relationships are everything to me. I do everything that I can to invest in them, because at the end of the day, all you have is time and who you spend it with. And that's really what's behind all of this for me.
Yeah, relationships. That's really good. That's a great one because it affects everything. So if anybody was out in the LinkedIn community, wanted to get in touch with you, what's the right kind of person to get in touch with you to be able to work with you or start building a relationship with you? This business community, because we know that the LinkedIn community is pretty powerful, and it's just
absolutely, yeah. Over 90% of my clients have come through LinkedIn. So and those people were strangers. So I can tell you that it works and it'll work for you. And my ideal client is a senior level leader within the design and or marketing community. I have a lot of experience within digital marketing. I know I've been focused a lot on design. And so that could be somebody on the product design side, somebody in creative direction or art direction, and some
or a group creative director or anything like that?
Anything like that. I work with ECDs. I have a couple of people who are at the C-level, head of designs for various consultancies. Anybody on those sides are certainly copywriters, content writers, strategists, lots of brand strategists, lots of product marketing managers and strategists. So that's pretty broad. And of course, on the marketing side, more of the digital marketing. I do get occasionally a communications specialist or somebody who is, within, I actually have a bunch of people right now in the animation world and film. It's pretty, people are like, why do you have such a small niche? I'm like, not small to me. Right. So there are really a lot of variation
that goes deep. I don't think sometimes people aren't as aware of how many creative industries there are and how many people work in those industries and all the different types of roles people play in those industries.
Completely. Absolutely.
So I just also want to make sure that what's the contact information that you want to give out in case anybody did want to reach out?
I appreciate that. My LinkedIn profile is down there at the bottom. Please find me on LinkedIn. I live there when I'm not in front of clients, and I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So
home.
and please engage in content. Engage in content. Certainly, I would welcome your comments, but engage in content that means something to you. And also, you can always find me at Loren, Loren, at portfoliorocket.com.
Well, Loren, this has been so great talking with you. I really appreciate it. I really love your refreshing take on how to create that next step in your career, because I think it's really valuable. And obviously it's very apropos in this very moment that we're going through, not only in the US, but globally. So I'm sure a lot of people will find what you have to say really intriguing and valuable, and hopefully start resetting a mindset for themselves so they can start taking steps forward to either work with somebody like you or start figuring out their own kind of networking or how they want to reposition themselves and start approaching it with less fear and more curiosity, interest, discovery, and start, creating some more of those feelings for themselves so they really feel empowered by this next step that they're creating.
Completely, yeah.
Instead of, a fear-based situation. So I think it's really great that we're able to talk tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody who's watching. It means a lot to me. So thanks again.
Yeah, I know Gabe is going to come on. He loves to come on whenever I guest host to be able to chat up for a while and tell us what he thinks. He's usually inspired by the guests I bring.
Oh yeah, these are really great conversations, and I love exactly everything that you've been talking about, because again, it's one of the best things about networking on this platform. There is so many people out there who have yet to realize how powerful it is to connect with and become a network connector on LinkedIn. It was shocking to hear that you said 90% of your clients have come from connection on LinkedIn. And that's one of the things I try to tell people when they get on this platform. It is so much more than what you think it is. You find so many connections. There's so many interesting people out there. And yes, if you engage in content, if you engage with people in conversation, some of these relationships, like you said, become clients. They become people who are very important in your life. So that's why when I heard that, I said, okay, she's talking about everything that I love about engaging here on LinkedIn. This is essentially where I've met so many interesting people myself who come into your world and become part of your community, right? These are a lot of people. So when you start posting content on a regular basis, when you start creating stuff, people who are connected with you start sharing and liking it and commenting on it. And before you know it, a connection of a connection of a connection has connected you with somebody, the right person at the right time that you need to be with. And
now we're connected. Yeah.
Yes. Right. And it's in this world just seems to, for me, it just seems to be so, it's wonderful for me because it keeps growing and growing and growing because I'm realizing there's so many more interesting individuals out there that I haven't had the opportunity to meet, connect, and talk with. So that's why when Megan brings people on, it's always interesting to learn from these folks because again, wow, that's somebody else in the world I didn't know existed. But man, they're out there making a difference. And that's why the caliber of people that she brings on, I always enjoy when she says, hey, I have another guest. Cool, let's do this. Because it's going to be somebody interesting and somebody who, again, has something to add. And you've added quite a bit tonight, Loren. I think that's been apparent. And a lot of the people, again said, they've been commenting that they love what you're saying. So even like Mary was saying, the entire ecosystem of how all of this works. And being on every aspect of it, you've seen both sides of it. And it's, again, you find these connections when you least expect it, or they come from somebody who you've not even known. And they say, hey, I've seen this person on another show. I've heard a podcast under this person, or I've seen them put a video on LinkedIn. You need to watch it. It's interesting. And then that kind of leads into the next step. Hey, wow, I'll go to her website, or let's connect a discovery call, or, and that's why I love when I tell people this is my favorite platform to stream on because of the engagement, because of the community. And most of these people, again, they come out of the woodwork when you least expect it. And that's what I love about this. So thank you both ladies for coming on here this evening. It's been a really great conversation. It has always been. So thank you, Loren, as well, for coming on. And just real quick, again, everybody, I've been kind of running it throughout the show, but if you want to connect with Loren, you can go to her LinkedIn there. And again, in the comments, it is a link. So if you connect it, you click it, it'll take you straight to her profile. Send her an invitation to connect. I'm pretty sure she's open to it. And again, send that one to Megan as well. Connect with either one of them. Tell them I sent you. And of course, try to be as cordial as possible. I know some of these connections can be pretty crazy. I've had a few myself. So I just tell people just be mindful when you send them, and just send them pretty much a good hello, and while you're connecting in, see where it goes from there. It could lead to something else, and that's what I love about doing this whole connection thing and networking here on this platform.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything you want to say before we get out of here, ladies?
Do you have any closing remarks or statements or anything, Loren?
No. What I want to, I think that the most important thing that I want to leave this audience with is, please don't settle.
Oh.
Please don't settle. Really, there is no one that is going to suffer more than you if you settle. Do not do that. Be far-reaching. and don't stop until you really get to a destination. It may not be your final destination that is going to work for you at this particular point in time. Life's really short, so make sure that you are going for it. And whether there's a pandemic, whether there's competition, those outside circumstances are not necessarily indicative of what it is that you're capable of. So don't let that hold you back.
Wow,
Right.
I think that's beautiful. I don't think I could add anything more to that, so I'm very happy with that.
Oh my! I mean, I'm just saying, here you are. You're living proof, right? You see it. There she is, right there. She's living proof of what it is to not settle for what it is. And if you haven't checked out her story, go read her profile a little bit. That was kind of interesting to read, and it's pretty inspiring to see that. So you know what? It doesn't matter at what point you are in that journey. Doesn't matter where you are in the trajectory of life. You can always make that change. And again, don't settle. That's awesome. It doesn't get any easier and more elegant. So thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you so much, both of you. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody on LinkedIn. And I hope to see you soon.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Sit tight, ladies. Yes. Everybody ladies, sit tight for a second. Everybody else, I will be back tomorrow evening, 7:30 Central Standard Time. Howard Kaufman will be tomorrow evening's guest. But again, tonight, thank you, Megan. Thank you, Loren, so much for coming on here. We will be back. And, of course, Megan will be back again. We're just trying to figure out when. So thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you.
One more comment. Everybody says, there you go. Scenery will change. I love that. So good night, everybody. Stay safe. Stay blessed. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.